Hey everyone. So a lot of people have been asking me for resume related advice and help for improving the resume in order to pass these online screenings. So today I decided to make this video talking about some general advice and tips I have in order to make a good resume that can easily pass these screenings. Afterwards, I'll also be showing how my resume gets parsed by one of these online applications just to highlight how important having a good resume is. And with that being said, thanks for watching and let's get into it. All right, so there's four major parts of a resume, and that includes like the header, the education, the work experience, and your projects. So I'll go through these sections one by one, and for now, let's start off with the header. So taking a look at my resume, as you can see from my header, I just have my name at the top with my phone number, my email, and my personal website. And then right after that, I also have my personal links. So that includes my like LinkedIn, my GitHub, my Google Scholar, some programming languages that I'm familiar with. In my opinion, you don't have to be like an expert at the language to have it written down on your resume. As long as you have some degree of familiarity, such as you worked with it before or you know the syntax, I think that's good enough for the sake of the resume. So feel free to put that on. And then finally, for technologies, that just includes any dev tools that I use, such as like Git, and as well as like any libraries or APIs that I've also used and am sort of comfortable with. The reason why I keep this at the top is because recruiters can see like at a glance that either my skill set is enough for like the role they're looking for or it's not. And as well as they can visit any of the links that I put up here to get a better understanding of my application. But feel free to put it at the bottom as well if you want to keep like your education and work experience more at the front. All right, so let's briefly talk about the education section. For this one, it's pretty simple. Basically, have your college or university listed, your graduation date, and your major, since those three are like the most important things a recruiter needs to know. Other than that, you can put your like concentration if you have one. For example, mine's is in AI, so I have that down, as well as like any honors or scholarships you're part of. I have Dean Scholarship, so I might as well put that down as well. And something else you can put down is like any relevant courses you did. So linear algebra, multivariable calculus, all this math and CS courses if you need, especially if you need like filler in your resume, that's a good thing to do. And I guess one mistake that I sometimes see with people's resumes is that they like to put down their high school as well. I wouldn't recommend that too much since it might confuse like the resume parser. Because normally, if you have two different education experiences, that just means that you went to grad school. So unless you did go to grad school, I wouldn't suggest putting your high school down as part of your education section. One further note is that some people include their GPA, some people don't. I chose not to, even though mine's is like a 3.9. So it's really up to you if you want to include or not. I don't think it will hurt your chances too much if you do or don't. All right, so now let's talk about the work experience section, which is arguably the most important section of a resume. And I guess to start off with, I want to talk about Jake's template really quickly, which is like a resume template that a lot of people are following and using. And my biggest criticism with this template is that they have like the role on top and then like the place where they worked at on the bottom. I think generally it's a lot better to have the company or place you worked at on top and in bold, and then like your role as like a small subtitle, since I think recruiters care a lot more about like where you worked at rather than what your role is. And this is especially the case if you have like brand name companies like FANG companies, where with a quick glance, if a recruiter sees that you have like Google or something, that brings a lot more value to your application than if they see that you're like a software engineer intern or some other role. But I guess moving on from that, after like your role, after your company title and then your role, I also sometimes add like what team or organization I was part of. Generally, I think it's good to have like 2 or 3 bullet points per description, and it's better to keep them longer than having like shorter and more smaller bullet points. And I guess if possible, if you haven't heard of it, there's like this XYZ formula or syntax, which is like accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. You can try to follow that for your bullet points. For mine, I don't really follow it per bullet points, but generally my entire description conveys like the same idea as that formula. All right, lastly, let's talk about the project section. And this is an important section if you're like a freshman or sophomore or someone who doesn't have too much applicable or relevant work experience. And If your resume isn't full, try to definitely fill up this section with your projects that are technically complex or advanced and interesting as well. So basically, for any project on here, you want to be able to talk about it for at least like a minute, diving into like any obstacles or challenges you faced, what was innovative or advanced about your project and work, and what possible applications it might have. For the description, keep it similar to the job descriptions. So basically, longer bullet points, try to follow a formula, and also, if possible, I advise it to link any source code that you might have, since people might be more curious about your project and want to see like how well you code, how quality the code is, and stuff like that. Also, feel free to include like your tech stack, which is what I do. You can also do this for job experiences as well, but I chose not to keep my resume not too cluttered. And I'll also be making a video later on talking about the importance of projects, how I go about choosing what projects to do and why I choose to do them, and maybe just like a general process I go through while making them. So look forward to that video in the future. Alright, so some final tips I have is, first of all, don't use like a fancy template. Just keep it simple. Have these 4 sections, which is like the header, the education, the work experience, and then the projects. If possible, name your resume your first name, underscore last name, underscore resume, so recruiters can easily find your resume if needed. Also, inside your descriptions, wherever applicable, add quantitative data or percents, statistics, numbers, stuff like that. And if you ever find yourself running out of space, you can try like downsizing the font, which is what I sort of did, or you can also like delete a few lines from your education experience if needed. I'll be linking my resume, my Google Doc, to the description below, so feel free to go click the link and then make a copy of my resume and use it as a template for yours. So now let's test out how well my resume parses against just some online application. I found Citadel has their own online parser, so I decided just to use that as a test. You can find this over here. If you just search up Citadel SWE internship, it should show up over here. Hopefully it's still there by the time you watch this video. And let's see how well it parses my application. Alright, so personal information filled in correctly, email address, contact, phone number filled in well. Alright, so the most important part, again, is like the employment history. So basically, as long as that gets parsed decently or well, your resume should be good enough to pass most screenings, provided you have a good background. And as you can see for my resume, it parses the job title, company, the dates basically perfectly for every single experience as well, which I believe shows that my resume is pretty good and a good template to use, since it can get all the employment history and separate it accordingly for the application. For education, it also gets most of it correctly. It also gets like the bullet points I have for there, so that's generally good. But I guess like the main thing that you want to have is make sure that your employment history gets parsed well. With that being said, thanks for watching and look forward to the next video.